Back, another episode of PPR Fantasy here with Miles. We've hit running backs, we've hit wide receivers. Today, we're hitting tight ends. Not the sexiest position in fantasy football, but can win you and lose you games depending on who you got. Per Miles, we're gonna go in reverse order today, so we're only gonna touch on 10 each, and then some sleepers. If you're getting into the tight end 20, your league's too big or you have problems. So we're not going to go there. But yeah, before we get started, how you doing? I don't know if you're in Oklahoma, Texas, California, Canada, Mexico. I don't know. You're all over the world.
I'm a world traveler here, but no, we're in Oklahoma today, sun shining. Let's get into these tight end rankings, man. I'm excited.
We'll actually be talking about Oklahoma legend Mark Andrews at some point today. So
I know, got to give him some love.
Boomer sooner. All right, we're starting with tight end 10 and working our way down. Going 99th overall, David Njoku. He's also my tight end 10. Got a pretty fat contract. I believe it was last year. He will be the Browns tight end 1. No target, at least not as much target competition anymore. I believe Hunter Bryant's still on the roster, but no Austin Hooper to worry about. A full offseason for Deshaun Watson. I like Njoku. He's always been a physical freak. I don't know if the Browns offense is conducive to him putting up gaudy numbers this year with them having Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, some other weapons, but Njoku's a guy, if he ends up on my team, I'm okay with it. I think there's guys below him that I'd rather have, but yeah, he's just pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you walk out of your draft with Njoku and you're kind of like, it wasn't too bad, right? You get your guy. Look, I have him at tight end 2. I think he's okay. I think he's a startable
There's
player
no way
all
you have him
season.
at tight end 2. I'm going to say that's 12.
10.
10.
10.
Okay. All right.
I have him at tight end 10. Open your ears, brother. But no, listen, I think he's the kind of player, like, you're probably going to be looking on the waiver wire all season to see if you can kind of hit lightning in a bottle somewhere else. I think he'll give you about, 7 to 10 points, and that'll be pretty steady, but it's not somebody that, you're going into your draft targeting, right? You're going to let him fall to you. And honestly, what's going to happen is you're going to look in like the 8th or 9th round and say, I don't have a tight end. And then you're going to pick him up. So the only thing that I worry about, and you touched on it quickly, was the Elijah Moore addition to the Browns. Like, I am a little afraid they're going to really want to use him as a weapon. I know there was a report recently, somebody interviewed Amari Cooper, and he talked about how he's comparing himself and Elijah Moore to like the greatest show on turf, which, I'm here to see it if it happens. But if that's how they think of it and that's how Stefanski's going to use him in the offense, I do think that kind of takes away from Njoku a little bit. But again, at this point in the draft, you're just picking up a tight end to put on your roster and start somebody. So
Elijah Moore is the greatest training camp player of all time. So
yeah, highlight video every day.
But Njoku is kind of the epitome of how I feel about a lot of tight ends. Like, big body, super athletic, very easy to convince myself that he could be like a tight end 2 or 3, and just at the end of the day, just won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been telling that about Njoku for I feel like 3 years now.
Right. Well, I do think the one benefit to him is you have Watson, and for however you feel about him as a quarterback or a person off the field, like, it's a better quarterback situation for a 17-game season that he had, in the last 5 years, right? So there is upside. I don't think it's a bad bet, but I think the guys that we're talking about above him, obviously, based on ADP, like, that's where you would like to go and you feel a little bit safer. But, he's probably the last guy that I feel safe about. He's starting, but you're probably going to be looking for somebody else throughout the season. So,
yeah,
up to 9.
Tight end 9, we have Pat Freiermuth coming into his 3rd season for Pittsburgh. ADP overall 94. He's my tight end 8. Listen, we expect Pittsburgh's offense as a whole to take a step forward. We'll talk about it in our quarterback episode. I know you like Kenny Pickett this year, but I think Freiermuth legitimately has 7 to 10 touchdown upside this season. So I'm honestly pretty in on Freiermuth. I still hate Matt Canada, which kind of caps every single player on that offense for me. But Freiermuth's a guy that if he falls to me in round, I'm trying to do the math quick. Round 94 is probably like round 8 or 9. If I can get him in round 9 or 10, that's a guy I'm very happy to get. And like I said, I think there's a lot more upside with Freiermuth than some of these other guys.
Yeah, 100%. I like him a lot. He's the guy that, and I think it matters on your draft strategy, right? Like if you're going to go heavy, wide receiver, running back, maybe pick up an early quarterback, you're going to be stuck with one of like an Njoku, a Freiermuth, or somebody below, right? So I like him a lot as a guy that's like, he falls to me later. But you got to remember, if you're in a 12-team league, people, unless they're crazy, they're probably not drafting 2 tight ends, right? So you're probably at this point in the draft only going to be fighting with 3 or 4 teams that don't have a tight end. And if you can play the waiting game the right way, you can get him, like you said, 8, 9, 10, like somewhere in that back of the draft where you've already loaded up on receivers and running backs. So I like his value there. I think, and I think he's a good example, and we're going to talk about this, but rookie tight ends usually don't perform, right? And he didn't really kind of break out as a rookie, but now that he's had some time in the system, I think he's going to be a favorite target of Kenny Pickett, especially in the red zone. Big body, he's always kind of had this profile. So I really like where his upside is this season. He's my tight end 9, kind of in line with where his ADP is. So I really like him a lot. Definitely a guy I'm targeting in a lot of my leagues.
Yeah, and if the Steelers do trend away from just running Najee Harris into the back of the line, I think that obviously helps Freiermuth. I mean, we saw Jalen Warren get some decent reps in their first preseason game. So I think obviously the more they throw, the better for Freiermuth. Yeah, they have some good weapons over in Pittsburgh. Just hate Matt Canada. Next up, we have your guy. Breakout season for him last year, going 84th overall, Evan Engram. Super athletic tight end. Had the draft pedigree as a first-round pick with the Giants. Yeah, I mean, honestly, even last year started out pretty slow, but down the stretch was one of the best tight ends in fantasy. Hopefully he can carry that momentum over. I'm a little bit torn on Engram. He's my tight end 9. I'm on the one hand, I'm concerned that we saw his ceiling last year, which is 73 catches for 766 and 4 touchdowns. Also worried that he's probably going to be the 4th option in that offense this year behind ETN, Ridley, Kirk, and behind those 3. On the other hand, he clearly improved getting out of New York, and maybe he is just one of Trevor's favorite targets and can legitimately challenge for 1,000 yards this season. Only had 4 touchdowns last year. There's some upside there as well. So curious what you think about Evan Engram.
I love him. I love Evan Engram. It's tough for me because I do think from a receiving standpoint, the Jacksonville offense is going to sprinkle it around. You might have a situation where, a lot of guys have 800, 900, 1,000-yard seasons, and they have a couple, few touchdowns each. So I think it's tough to gauge that. But, I mean, last year he had 98 targets. You have to think that's going to drop a little bit with Calvin Ridley there. They're probably going to favor him a little bit more. But I still think he's a good red zone threat. He's clearly the tight end 1 there. And Doug Peterson loves using his tight ends in his offense. The good thing that I think about Engram is the way he's built and the way they play him. They play him in the slot. They play him in a lot of different spots. So he really is truly like a receiver. So for me, I think that's a little bit different where I think Freiermuth plays more as like a traditional tight end. He's on the line. You can get some play action. Evan Engram kind of does a lot of different things. And for that reason, I like him as a tight end on my team because I think he can get 4 or 5 catches a week, probably get 60 yards, and maybe get a touchdown. So, we'll see where it goes. Not a guy that I'm thrilled to have on my team, right? If I'm looking to have a good tight end, I don't think he's going to satisfy you that way. He's my tight end 7 because I like the Jacksonville offense. I think they're going to score a lot of points. That's the only reason I would probably put him on my team, but I think he's in that different tier. For me, he's a tier 3 guy. He's not somebody you can count on week to week, but he does have good upside. So I like him, don't love him. But he's one of my guys. He's Trevor's guy, so
I'm
we
curious,
love him in Jacksonville.
what do you think the pass run split will be in Jacksonville this year? Are we going to see Trevor throwing the ball like 40 plus times a game?
No, I actually think, and you kind of saw it a little bit in it's the preseason game. You can't take much from it. I think they're going to run the hell out of the ball. They're going to give it to Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby and open up just wide open, easy throws for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's going to be this air raid down the field, 20-plus yard touchdown type plays. No, I think it's going to be crossers across the middle, like how I play you in Madden, right across the middle.
Let's hope not. You lost a lot of those games.
But no, if you say run pass split, I think it's probably going to be pass 56, run 44. I think it's going to be a lot more even than people think. But that's just, early signs of what I'm seeing out of Jacksonville camp.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see that. I could also see the scenario where they're literally throwing it every play, but like a couple. So we'll see. I think if ETN was a better receiving back, I'd honestly be more worried about them throwing it a lot, but I do think they'll try to work him in. So I was going to say 65-35, but
wow. If they're doing that, then I think that they're playing from behind too much. I think they're going to be ahead a lot where they're going to be able to run the ball and just run the clock down. So
a lot of Jermichael Hasty in your future, dude.
Hey, you had a great touchdown run last year.
All right. Tight end 7 by ADP. These two guys are actually tied 6 and 7, but we'll start with Dallas Goedert at 68th overall. I love Goddard. He is actually my tight end 6. Yeah, I similar to Jacksonville, a lot of cooks in the kitchen in Philly. However, I do think because Philly has a harder schedule this year, they won't be just running the piss out of the ball in the second half because they won't just have these huge leads, which obviously means more passing for Jalen Hurts, more receptions for Goddard, Devonta, AJ Brown, all that. Goddard missed a few games last year. Wouldn't be overly concerned about that, but I think he's one of the elite tight ends in the league. Maybe not fantasy wise, but I think Jalen Hurts has a good repertoire with him and a rapport, I should say. And yeah, I expect Goddard to have a huge season. So like him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am, and it's the same Jacksonville argument, right? It's I'm worried about AJ Brown. I'm worried about Devontae Smith. I'm worried about Jalen Hurts just rushing the ball when they're inside the 5-yard line. If you're taking away touchdowns, it's tough. Where I do think Goddard helps is in the middle of the field. I feel like Jalen Hurts loves him because, I'm sure they're going to do different things with their offense now that Steichen's in Indy. It's going to look a little bit different than it did last year. Same principle, same things like that. But I think Goddard's the guy that they're going to have over the middle of the field. He's the bigger body. AJ Brown is kind of that, outside receiver where he can kind of break those bigger plays. But you're not going to run Devontae Smith over the middle. He's not this bigger built guy. So in that respect, I really like him. I'm just kind of worried about who's getting the touchdowns there, but he's my tight end 4. I'm really high on him. He's a step below my top, my top guys. But I think if you walk out of the draft with Dallas Goedert, you're gonna have to pay to draft him, right? You got to step up and draft him in an earlier round. You're gonna be happy with your tight end room because you're gonna have somebody you're gonna start all season. Besides his bye week or injury, you have somebody who's a plug and play every single week. So, that's how I distinguish my tier 2 guys, right? Tier 2 is I'm really not taking him out of my lineup. Every week it's, you're there unless you're hurt or, 3 weeks of bad production. I'm looking for something else. So,
yeah, what also helps him, he'll be in there most run plays, great blocker as well. So,
yeah,
he'll be on the field for the majority of the snaps. So he's your last guy that you're taking before you start streaming tight ends, you think? Or what is your opinion on streaming tight ends in general?
Streaming tight ends for me, like it depends on your draft. Like, so again, if you draft Travis Kelce, obviously you have no problem, right? Mark Andrews, Kittle, like those top guys that you don't have to ever worry about it. I would say this year, my last guy that I'm willing to just put in every week and not stream a tight end is Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is even on the borderline of like, we need to see it, but I'm betting on his upside. And I know you love him, right? You're going to give us the full rundown on, Pitts Mania. But, streaming tight ends, it's a crapshoot. And like, honestly, half of your league is probably going to be doing it. Like half of the league is probably going to be looking for production at the tight end position, right? You kind of just have to find lightning in a bottle. Maybe one of these rookies breaks out, although it's unlikely. But think about last year. I remember I picked up Gerald Everett off the waivers. Nobody had him, and this guy, ends in a pretty solid, streaming option for a tight end. So there is always somebody, but you kind of have to be like diligent in the first couple weeks of the season to grab him, right?
Yeah. Juwan Johnson was another streaming legend last year.
Great, so. Right. There's got to be somebody.
Taysom Hill, fuck him. I hate him, but he's a cheat code at tight end. All right, next up is my guy, Kyle Pitts, also going ADP 68th overall. Incredible talent. Bottom line is his problem is he has quarterbacks that can't throw him the ball, and he has a coach that refuses to let him run routes. I don't understand why. But I'm going to give my guy Arthur the benefit of the doubt. We get rid of Marcus Mariota, who literally was the least accurate quarterback in the NFL last year. Terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to read you a couple Kyle Pitts stats.
All right. Lay it on me. What do we got?
To get you excited. So he was sixth among all tight ends in yards per route run last year at 1.72 yards. And he was targeted on 28.5% of his routes, which led all tight ends in the NFL that ran 100 or more routes last season. So that's the good. Now, here's the bad. He only ran 20.7 routes per game, which was 28th out of all tight ends in the league. And Atlanta threw the ball 13% below expectation on all downs. So that's negative. Back to positive. He averaged 13.8 air yards per target last season, which was the highest of all tight ends. And 28.8% of his targets were on throws 20 yards or further downfield. So I do think Atlanta's going to pass the ball more now that hopefully Desmond Ritter's at least competent, can at least get in there. And I am hopeful, like at some point, Arthur Smith's got to look himself in the mirror and say, we don't just have to run Kyle Pitts on 20-yard verticals. Like, let's just get him some easy catches across the middle. Let his athletic ability take over. So, yeah, I am expecting a huge breakout year. There's literally zero target competition for him outside of Drake London.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, there's literally nobody else in the room.
They're both going to see like 30% target share this year. So I'm just optimistic that at some point Arthur Smith's going to realize, like, hey, this guy's a fucking good player. Let's just throw him the ball anywhere on the field. And he just needs a couple small wins every week, get his confidence back up, get his legs back under him. He's my tight end 4. I think he has legit breakout capability this year. So, yeah, I'm super high. Am I a little biased? Probably. One
Definitely.
other note, he just took the brace off for his MCL injury last year. Took a lot longer to heal than we initially thought. So he definitely has a bit more injury concern than some of these other top guys. But if I'm taking a tight end in this range, I'm shooting for the moon. And I think he's a guy who legitimately could challenge for that. Probably not tight end 1. I mean, Travis Kelce's just different, but could easily finish as tight end 2, tight end 3. And I mean, even last year he was going round 3 or 4. You can get him in like round 6 now. I think that the talent's still there, situation's there. Hopefully Arthur Smith gets his head out of his ass and lets Desmond Ridder just dump it off to Pitts. But very high on him this year, assuming he stays healthy. So yeah, that's my spiel on Kyle Pitts.
No, you cover him well. I mean, you follow the Falcons, so there's no more in-depth person besides the reporters than you, right? So, I mean, listen, dude, I like Kyle Pitts, but I think the only thing that really hampers him is quarterback play. I like Desmond Ridder, but we don't know, right? Like, we don't know what's going to happen this year, and because of that, I don't think you can And to be fair, last year I thought he was overdrafted. Going in round 3 or 4, it was more of the upside of, oh well, this guy could be great.
Well, I mean,
I think
he had 1,000 yards as a rookie, so which
no,
is like
no, and I think there's some touchdown regression that he has to he's gonna get some more touchdowns. He had 2 last year. I mean, the guy wasn't scoring touchdowns, and if he gets up to 6 or 7, it's gonna look a whole different for his profile, right? So
he's got three career touchdowns in 2 years.
Yeah, you got to think that as the offense evolves a little bit more, he's going to get more of that share. I mean, the guy's a physical freak, and you want to like you said at that point, if you're betting on upside and you're talking about taking him, or I think even George Kittle. I have Kittle ranked ahead of him. Kyle Pitts is my tight end 6, but I will say if you're going for a moonshot, Kittle's not going to get you there. Kyle Pitts will. Kyle Pitts does have the chance, and there's a non-zero chance Kyle Pitts is tight end 1, right? He has all the physical tools in the receiving kind of background and skill set to take number 1. I just don't bet on the quarterback. I'm betting on Mahomes and Lamar and Kirk. I mean, I'd even bet on Kirk Cousins to get TJ Hawkinson the ball. It's just more consistent, and that's what I would go with. Because at tight end, I want 10 points a week, 12, 15 points a week. If I can get that, I'm winning, right? So Kyle Pitts is in my tier 2, tight end 6. I like him. If he falls to me, I'm taking him, but he's not somebody that I'm necessarily saying I'm going to spend a premium pick or I'm going to reach for. But I do like him.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about even if he can get 5 touchdowns this year, I think he's probably beating ADP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's, I think last year, I think you are right. He was being overdrafted, but I think there's been such a reversal. I think him and Drake London should be going pretty much around the same time. Drake London's even going a round or 2 higher than him. So love Kyle Pitts, still only 22, super young. If he can stay healthy, going to be good. Desmond Ridder passing the ball. It's going to be great. Next up at 57, we have new Giant, Darren Waller, who by all accounts has been basically Tony Gonzalez in training camp this year, the greatest tight end to ever walk the earth. He is my tight end 4, actually. Pitts is tight end 4. Darren Waller, I have tight end 5, right around ADP. And it comes down to the fact that I think a lot of the preseason stuff is smoke and BS, but every time I turn on Twitter, it's Darren Waller's caught 10 of the last 15 passes from Daniel Jones. The Giants receiving core is a mess. Listen, Darren Waller has been not healthy recently, which I think is probably. I think if he doesn't produce this year, it's going to be based on health, not because of talent or spot. So if you're willing to swallow the risk that he doesn't play a full season, then I get that. But I mean, you look at 2019, he had 90 catches for 1,100 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2020, 107 catches for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think he could easily get into that 80 to 90 catch range if he plays a full season this year. I don't know if he's going to be racking up that many yards, but I think Daniel Jones is legitimately going to force feed this guy at least to start the season until he gets more comfortable with some of the receivers. So I think there's a lot of upside with Waller. Downside is injury and age, but yeah, he's a guy I wasn't high on really either, going in the preseason, but I mean, he's apparently been just dominating. And again, take it with a grain of salt, but at some point, if they say it enough times, at some point I'm going to be like, all right, this guy's killing it.
I mean, listen, let me ask you this question. So if you're starting a team and you want a quarterback, and a lot of how I look at this is just who's your quarterback? Would you rather have Derek Carr or Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones.
on age and like what you've seen in history, maybe. I think as a pure passer, this is just my opinion, Derek Carr is leaps and bounds ahead of where Daniel Jones is. And I'm not saying Daniel Jones can't get there. I think Daniel Jones is still young. I actually am high on him. And, as a quarterback, I really like him, especially for fantasy. But I do think there's some upside with Daniel Jones. I don't want to piss off my New York Giants fans out there. But I'm not touching Darren Waller. He's just on my do not draft list. It's injury, it's age, it's that offense. I think the Giants aren't going to be what they were last year. And like you said, the one positive is I don't really think there's a better receiving threat on that team. I thought I saw a report that said they had to tell Daniel Jones to stop throwing him the ball because they wanted to get other people work because he was literally force feeding him the ball. It was like, oh, Darren Waller caught like 5 of the last, 10 passes. 4 of them were touchdowns. Like, that's what he is. And like, that makes you kind of get excited and say, okay, this is going to happen. And this is going to be what's going to be, the reality for my season. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. I'm not drafting him. I think at his age, once you start having an injury history, it's kind of downhill. So I'm out. And I like Darren Waller. His story is great. His comeback from, all of his rehab, I love him. But like, as a fantasy player this year, I would rather take a rookie. I would rather take somebody way later and not spend the premium draft capital on him this year. So, and he's my tight end 8. So I like him, but I don't like him that much,
So, I mean, he obviously had the injuries, but aside from that, he's competing with Devontae Adams the past season. He is going to be the alpha in the Giants offense. Now, I'm not targeting him in drafts. If I were to draft him, here's what I would do. I would let him go nuclear for about the first 3 to 4 weeks. I'm trading his ass before, the midway point or whatever. He'll hope in that scenario, hopefully he's like tight end like 2 or 3, just absolutely racking up targets. I agree with you. I don't think he makes it a full season, especially if Daniel Jones is literally throwing him the ball like 20 times a game. So I think there's a lot of upside there, but I'm with you. Not a guy I'm targeting because of the injury risk, but I can see a scenario where if he were to stay healthy, he's finishing as a top 3 tight end this year. Next up, a guy that you love, I don't like, is George Kittle going 55th overall. He's my tight end 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why.
Right. Okay, tell me why. I want to hear. Convince me.
Listen. All right, he was great in 2018, great in 2019, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Fell off in 2020 with only 48 catches, 2 touchdowns. Came back strong in 2021, 71 catches, 910 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, last year, there's this narrative that he was an absolute beast, and he was down the stretch. But that's because he scored 11 touchdowns. He only had 60 catches for 765 yards, but 11 touchdowns. If he even has like 6 touchdowns last year, I think he's going as tight end 6 or 7. There's so many weapons on that offense. I get that he's Brock Purdy's guy, but I just do not see a scenario he's scoring double-digit touchdowns again this year. He's also getting up there in age. He's going to be 30 this season. Not as much injury risk as Waller, but he has missed some games over the years. So he's a guy that at his ADP, I'm not touching at all.
That's fair. That's fair. And at his ADP, again, like it comes down to, your opportunity cost, right? Like, what am I looking at when he's on the board? There's better receivers and there's better running backs that I'm going to take. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I'm, all George Kittle. He's my tight end 5, and I just like his floor. Like, he's going to get targets. He's going to get the ball. And with Purdy for a full season, I don't think Purdy is this, magician playmaker. I think when he gets in trouble, he's literally going to dump it over the middle or dump it down to George Kittle or dump it off to Christian McCaffrey, and that might hurt him a little bit. But I don't think he's going to go to having like 50 targets, 35 catches, 400 yards. No, he's going to have a good season, right? He had 86 targets last year. He's always been a focal point of the offense. And like you said before, his tight end doesn't come off the field. He's an incredible blocker, probably one of the better blocking tight ends in the league. And for what they're doing in San Francisco, the way they want to run the ball, I do like the way that they're going to probably just give him short passes and let him do something with the ball after the catch. So I like him, but I'm with you for his ADP. I'm not drafting him over other receivers and running backs, but his floor is the reason he's ahead of Kyle Pitts for me. Because
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts' floor could be really, Desmond Ridder, I'm just not sure. I trust Shanahan to just give him the ball and let him do just simple stuff, right? That's why he's my tight end 5.
I think it's just like a little bit of a philosophical difference. At that point in the draft, I'm looking to hit a breakout guy. I think that you draft Kittle at, what did I say, 55?
Yeah. I think
at
it was
55.
Yeah.
I think he's probably finishing right around tight end 4 or tight end 5. But I don't see any scenario. There is a scenario, but I don't see a great chance of him finishing above that tight end 4, tight end 5. And you're right. You're probably getting a solid floor there, but I would much rather take, a Drake London or someone with a lot of upside in that slot rather than just know that I can plug a tight end that's getting me like 8 to 12 points a week. So
100%.
But yeah, I think Kittle's a great player and probably the second best overall tight end in the league. Just fantasy wise, don't love him this season. Next up, we're getting into my tier 1 or my tier 2. Sorry, Travis Kelce's alone. Travis Kelce's tier 0, and then this is my tier 1.
It's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that because before we did this, I was like, well, I got 3 guys in my tier 1, and I was like, that's not really fair to Travis Kelce. He is a different, and we'll get there. He's just so different that it's a disservice to him to put anybody else in his category. Yeah. He's on an island on his own. So
he's like a tier 1 receiver. It's crazy. 47th overall, TJ Hawkinson obviously made the transition from Detroit to Minnesota, and no one was probably more thankful than TJ Hawkinson because this man balled the hell out in Minnesota. Instant connections with Kirk Cousins. I'm trying to pull up his splits right now since making the switch, but yeah, he is a guy I'm very excited about this year. Only 25 years old, was a top 15 pick, maybe even top 10. I forget exactly where he went. He's my tight end 3. He's a guy that I'm targeting at 47. We have Mark Andrews going 29th overall, and honestly, I think they should be separated by no more than like 5 picks. I think they're very close. Love Hawkinson. Think Minnesota's going to throw the ball a lot. He's not going to face a ton of doubles with Jefferson on the outside and then the addition of Jordan Addison. And I do think this offense has enough targets to go around. So also only had 6 touchdowns last season. There's some room for positive regression there. But yeah. Hawkinson.
No, I like him. Honestly, he finished last year as tight end 2. I don't really see why he wouldn't do that again this year. I think at least that offense they're still going to score. I don't really know how good the Vikings are going to be. I can't get a good read or gauge on that, but I still think the offense is going to be kind of dynamic. And you know what Hawkinson can do? He was a top 10 pick in the 2019 draft, I believe. And you went pick 8. It's the Lions just never used this guy, and we just were scratching the surface with what the Vikings could do with him. I really like his upside this season. He had 129 targets this year. Only other guy over 120 targets was Travis Kelce. So on just pure volume, you kind of have to take the bet. And with tight ends, I think that's the theme, right? Pick volume. If the guy's going to be on the field and get a lot of targets, put him in your lineup. Draft him high, and for where he's going ADP wise, I'm with you. He should be going ahead of Mark Andrews, just with the competition in Baltimore. So I really like Hawkinson. I still have him ranked as tight end 3 for me, but that's more so because I've seen Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has done it forever. We've seen Mark Andrews be Lamar's guy, but maybe that is shifting. I saw a report yesterday that Mark Andrews got so pissed at this joint practice that Lamar threw a touchdown to somebody else. He threw his helmet, almost broke it on the ground. So maybe times are changing. He got
in a fight with Emmanuel Forbes too. But Hawkinson, since he went over to Minnesota week 8, 9 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 8 targets, 9 targets, 16 targets, 12 targets. And then their last game of the season, you only saw 1 target, but that's because they were resting starters. Yeah, I mean, just some incredible numbers. And like I said, he only scored 3 touchdowns for Minnesota last year. I think there's a lot of room for that to grow.
And I don't think people value the fact that he went through an offseason with the like he got traded mid-season and had to pick up a playbook, and they were probably just running. I didn't grind all 22, but they're probably running some basic tight end routes to get him open, right? They're not running something sophisticated like Travis Kelce and Andy Reid do. Now that he's got an offseason, and you saw, like, I think a lot of us believe Kevin O'Connell's a pretty good coach. I think he's going to put some pretty sophisticated plays in to get him open. So I like the upside for Hawkinson going into this year. And I think he's a guy that's like poised to be a breakout tight end, more so than Pitts. Could end as tight end 1. If somebody's going to supplant Travis Kelce, I really think you could look at him and be like, this is the profile of the guy who's going to do it. So
yeah, he's my first guy, my first tight end where I'm targeting him where he is at ADP. I'm going to pass on Kelce. I'm going to pass on Andrews. Hawkinson's in that range where, you know, you're picking him versus, you know, some of the receivers or running backs. I mean, he's tempting for sure. Next up is Mark Andrews going 29th overall. He's always been Lamar's boy, obviously. I still think he has arguably the most touchdown upside outside of Travis Kelce, just based on how the Ravens run that offense. They should be more pass heavy under getting a new OC this year too. So that should help. But yeah, arguably the most target competition of Andrews' career. I mean, you bring in OBJ, you bring in Zay Flowers. Isaiah Likely is starting to emerge as a legitimate pass threat. I think Bateman finally got cleared, so he'll be around as well. But yeah, I think Andrews still has a pretty high floor, but I'm not sure the ceiling is as high as people think this year.
I'm spot on. I'm locked up with you. Like, I like Andrews. If you get him as your tight end, you're not mad. Like, you're pretty happy because you know what you're gonna get. I still think his floor is pretty high. I don't think he's gonna have a horrible season and fall off a cliff. I don't think he has. I mean, there's a chance he's not a top 4 tight end. There is a chance he slips and you're overdrafting him, and that's a tight end's a position that I do not want to overdraft. Like, you want to get value, and you want to get, you want to draft ahead, like, get value over their ADP. I don't know if you're going to get it with him. So he's not a guy that, again, where he's going, you're looking at premium, wide receiver 2, RB2 type players. I'm going that route over him. Even though I have him ranked as my tight end 2, I'm talking about him like, doom and gloom. It's just where he's going versus the players that I can get. I'd rather go the other route. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get fed targets like he has in the past this year. And you're right. If you swing and a miss on a tight end this high in the draft, your season's screwed. Whereas if I'm taking a chance on like a Greg Dulcich in the 12th round, there's tight ends in free agency that are going to give me equal, if not more, productivity. So yeah, it
comes down to this. It's like, are you going to take Jahmyr Gibbs or Mark Andrews? Like, that's like, roughly where they're at. I'd rather take the risk on a rookie running back who might blow up and win me my league. Mark Andrews isn't going to do that. Or T. Higgins. T. Higgins is like one of the premier wide receiver 2s versus what we're talking about is like, the top 2 or 3 tight end, like by ADP. I'm going to go with T. Higgins as my wide receiver 2. I just feel more comfortable with that than I do with Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I also feel like for tight ends specifically, like the drop off from tight end 2 to tight end like 8 is minuscule compared to the drop off from like wide receiver 20 to wide receiver, 30, 35. So,
yeah. I could, yeah.
So I'm 100% with you on that. Last but not least, the GOAT, Travis
Definitely
Kelce.
Not least.
The last guy that we'll talk about outside of the sleepers is Travis Kelce. He's going 6th overall. I'm not a guy that likes taking tight ends in the first round, but like, I don't blame you. He's 33. I thought he'd be over the hump by now, but he scored over 100 more fantasy points than the next closest tight end last
It's
year.
insane. He's a cheat code.
He's gone over 1,000 yards in, let's see, I believe the last 5 seasons. Oh, more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's gone over 1,000 yards the last 7 seasons, had over 80 catches in each of those, and then he's had 10 or more touchdowns 3 of those 7, including, and then one of the years he had 8, another year he had 9. I mean, the guy is a machine out there. And yeah, like I said, if you were to take him in the first round, you have a clear positional advantage. But I mean, at some point, he's going to be getting hurt. I mean, he's 33. I'm worried that this is the year I draft him 6th overall. He gets banged up, starts missing some games.
Your season's 10.
You're done. Yeah. So
you're done.
That's why I'm not drafting him, but like I understand the argument for taking him.
I get, and also the argument for taking him round 1 is like the positional advantage. Like you said, he scored 100 more points in the next site. Like every single week, you win your tight end matchup. Like and he's probably making up for the matchups that you're like closely losing. Like he's that good. Like he's that much of a weapon. I think in like a full PPR, I'd be more in on taking him, 5, 6, 7, especially if you're the back of the first round. I've thrown this out to you, and I think this is the interesting thing. Would you stack him and Mahomes?
You were,
because I think I'm Mahomes, Travis. It's a risky stack, but you could blow up. You know what I mean? That could be guaranteed points every week. So you're not getting Travis Kelce at pick 12. Like he's not falling that far. There's enough good things to say about the guy. He's the best tight end. He's probably the GOAT. Like the only question is he going to fall off a cliff or get injured? And I can tell you this: I'm not going to hold that bag this year. Yeah. I have pick 8 in a full PPR on Sunday, and even if he's there, I can tell you I'm not taking him. You know who I'm taking, and I know he's going to be there. I am not touching this guy just because I don't want to see him get injured and tank my season on that 1 pick. But I don't blame anybody for taking him. He's as good as it's going to get. He's better than receivers.
I will say, still like no target competition in Kansas City. I mean, there's going to be guys that emerge because that's just what Kansas City does. But yeah, I think he obviously has the highest touchdown floor too. I mean, he's getting at least, I mean, they do those stupid like pitches to him and everything.
Underhand tosses.
Yeah. He's going to score his touchdowns.
He's going to have like 8 or 9 touchdowns minimum.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the health and the age, especially say Kansas City gets out to like a 10-2 start or something, and he's like a little banged up. Are they just going to, rest him a couple games? So
that is true.
Something to consider. All right, real quick, we'll talk about some guys outside of the top 10 that we like. I'll start. Greg Dulcich from Denver, guy I'm targeting. Sean Payton traditionally loves using tight ends. Am I worried that they have like 8 tight ends on the roster? A little bit, but I expect a bounce back year from Russell Wilson. Year 2 for Dulcich, which has been traditionally a pretty good year for tight ends, year 2. So I'm in on Dulcich at 80. He's going 142nd overall. I like him there. I like Sam Laporta, even though he's a rookie in Detroit. Outside of Amon-Ra, I think he could be, and Jahmyr Gibbs probably, I think he could get 2nd or 3rd most targets. He's going 166th overall. And I also like what I'm reading about Luke Musgrave out of Green Bay. He's going 212th. Super fast, super young. Just like the upside there. And he's a guy you basically can take with your last round pick. So
right. That's what's nice about him. The only like the risk with a guy like him is like, okay, well, you completely miss the boat. That offense sucks, and you get no production from your tight end, right? You took mine. I really like Sam Laporta too in Detroit. Love his upside. I think for me, I like Chigakonkwo in Tennessee. He's a name that's kind of rising on boards. Treylon Burks just went down with an injury. It's not like there's a crowded room in Tennessee. They love his athleticism. He's a guy that you might want to keep an eye on. You don't have to spend a premium pick on this guy. A guy that got drafted that nobody's really talking about, Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
Michael Mayer's a guy out there that you really don't have to spend premium capital on, but a guy who was deemed as like ready to play, great blocker, and it's really just Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow out there, and say what you want about Jimmy G, but Jimmy G was getting George Kittle the ball.
I'm just worried about the Raiders offense as a whole. I mean,
yeah, no, it's not an offense you want to bet on, but it's in terms of like a guy that you can look at and say, okay, well, maybe I can see a pathway to this guy being a productive enough tight end that I don't have to use a good pick on. He's out there. And then the obvious one for me, I love Dalton Kincaid. I think he's got the Kyle Pitts type mold of this dude's a receiver who's masquerading as a tight end. I've started to look at some mock drafts I've been in. I love the idea of just getting Dalton Kincaid. And I know the whole thing with rookie tight ends, they don't perform. It's a losing argument. If you get a rookie tight end, you're probably not going to have great production. But he's playing with Josh Allen, and it's not like there's a ton of reliable targets outside of Stephon Diggs. So I really like Kincaid. He's a guy that I really think you should take a look at.
I'm super high on Kincaid. My problem with him is he's going 133 overall right now. I don't know how they're going to use him considering they paid Dawson Knox. You have to imagine he's going to still be on the field a decent amount. So I'm taking a chance on a rookie. I'd rather, try out for Michael Mayer or Musgrave on a pick that like you're basically using like your last pick on those guys rather than
totally.
A guy that I do like in Kincaid's range though, Gerald Everett, I think is gonna pop off this year. I just love betting on the Chargers offense this year as a whole. So Everett's going pretty low. He's like 152. I don't really quite understand that.
Neither. He's a guy that could finish top 10 tight end. You could get a lot of value out of him. And Justin Herbert's gonna sling the ball this year. Like
I hate the Cardinals offense, but Trey McBride is a little bit intriguing for me. A little bit less so now that Zach Ertz is healthy, but
I'll sell all my shares on that. You could have every single share of Trey McBride. Get out of here. I don't want that. Stop.
A couple of guys I'm avoiding. I'm out on Dalton Schultz. He's tight end 11 by ADP going 123. I don't think he's like a great tight end talent. I think
that's fair.
I think he was a volume guy in Dallas, and I just don't know if he's going to do the same thing with Stroud and Houston. So out on him where he's going. Cole Kmet's a guy I always want to convince myself that he's better than he really is, but I think if Justin Fields is slinging the ball, it's going to be to DJ Moore. So pretty out on Kmet at 128 overall. He's tight end 12 by ADP. Like there's just no way. Every year with tight ends, I convince myself that there's guys in like 15 through 20 that are going to pop off, and they like rarely do. But this year, the board's looking good down there. I like a lot of the options. I'm probably not taking a tight end unless a guy like Pitts or Hockenson falls to me. Like I'm probably not taking one until post round 10. So that's just my opinion.
Here's one other name I'll just throw out there because I know there's a lot of good reports about him in Chicago, and it's not Cole Kmet. It's Robert Tonyan.
Jesus.
People are saying, people are just saying he's been that reliable target. He's the veteran presence, and he knows how to get open. Like, he's a guy that you don't even have to draft. It's just a guy, keep the eye, like, the first week, keep an eye on the waiver wire, see how he does that first week against Green Bay. I think he's a guy that's going to get picked up, and he's going to be a startable streaming option. Like, if you're talking about a streaming tight end, he's a guy out there that's, there's potential. So,
yeah. You also talked about Derek Carr earlier. Juwan Johnson, I think, is a decent streamer if you can get him. And then, yeah, we'll have to monitor what the hell Taysom Hill does. But if he's running fucking 10 plays a game at QB again, like he's a guy worth picking up. Just because
biggest cheat code in all of fantasy sports is letting that guy play tight end.
I played against him in a league last year. I think he scored 3 rushing touchdowns and had 0 catches, popped off for like 20 plus points. Just so stupid.
It's ridiculous. He should not be a tight end, but
yeah, just don't get tight when you're drafting tight ends. There's a lot of guys out there.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. We'll be back with our quarterback episode, and then we're looking to do a couple live drafts here and there. We'll figure that out at a later date. But damn, I mean, drafts are a couple weeks away now. I'm sure there's leagues already drafted, but
and we got content. We got football back on. We got
fingers crossed. Hasn't been too many bad injuries yet in the preseason. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. So let's keep that up. But yeah, we'll see you next time for the quarterbacks.